Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists. Welcome to the high-level Ministerial Dialogue on Financing the Energy Transition in the Asia-Pacific, Strategies to Move Beyond Business as Usual in Financing, hosted by the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific in partnership with UN Trade and Development. Excellencies, we heard our Secretary General remarks to the World Climate Action Summit last Tuesday, 12 November, when he said last year developing and emerging markets outside China received just 15 cents for every dollar investment in clean energy globally. COP29 must tear down the walls of climate finance, end of quote. The business as usual scenario reliance on coal, oil and gas must be reconsidered to unlock the potential of renewable energy investments and turn energy transitions into a reality. Collaboration between ministries of energy, finance, environment, infrastructure, and natural resources should be essential, but is unfamiliar with difficulties. Against this context, ESCAP and its partner, UN Trade and Development, holds this high-level ministerial dialogue on energy transition financing so we can explore innovative ways that will pivot us away from BAU approaches. Let us begin now for the opening remarks of Mrs. Armida Alishabayana, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and friends, a warm welcome to this high-level dialogue on financing the energy transition with special reference to Asia-Pacific. Special thanks to all eminent speakers and looking forward to hearing your insights shortly. And also a special thanks to UNTAD, UN Trade and Development, especially the Rebecca here, our close friends and partner, to many of our work, including financing, and also including on energy, especially through the critical minerals work. Why the topic is important, financing energy transition, and especially in Asia-Pacific. As we know, this morning, I'm sure many of you heard the pledge, the energy pledge, or COP29 pledge, in which how to scale up and accelerate the renewable energy through three pledges. One is on green corridor zone, second is on hydrogen, and third is on the storage of battery. So all of these are also commitment of the Asia-Pacific countries. All of these need a lot of investment, and hence financing, funding are very critical. One assessment by IEA put the number for the overall investment to reach for Asia-Pacific to reach net zero by 2050 is at the ballpark of $1.5 trillion annually. That is a huge number, and definitely financing gap still persists. And furthermore, it is compounded by factors such as high initial costs, risk premium, high cost of capital, macroeconomic uncertainty, as well as regulatory barriers. So therefore, a lot of questions that we need to discuss and ask and find solution for, including how to develop the right financing framework, how also to expand the financing avenue, other financing avenues such as green bonds, blended finance, carbon markets, PPP, etc. So therefore, I think this dialogue today is very opportune with a very simple, I think, objective. First objective is exchange of view insight, on what are the prerequisites needed to move away from the business as usual in energy financing to all the solution that we would like to see. And second, also that we need to examine how to strengthen, also equally important, the policy and institutional framework. And hence we can further strengthen the policy coherence and clarity, and therefore foster investor confidence and improve project execution. So with that, again, a warm welcome to all of you and looking forward to hearing your insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Armida, for your insightful remarks. I would like to invite now Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Secretary General of UN Trade and Development, Mrs. Rebecca Greenspan, for your kind remarks, por favor.
Hello. Yes, this is on. Hello, everybody. Do you hear me well? Yes, because you have the. Yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Armida, for inviting me to this. And let me say that we have a wonderful collaboration with the regional commissions and with the regional commission in Asia Pacific. They do wonderful work. So to you and all your team, thank you very much for putting this together. It's a wonderful occasion to talk about energy transition in the Asia Pacific region. And let me also greet the wonderful panel that we have here. We have the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance of the Republic of Fiji, the Minister of Climate Change, Environment and Energy of Maldives, the coordinator to Prime Minister on Climate Change, Minister of Climate Change and Environment from Pakistan, and the Deputy Managing Director of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and the Undersecretary of the Department of Energy of Philippines, and obviously my very good friend from the Green Climate Fund, the Deputy Executive Director, Henry. He's Costa Rican, you know, so you have two Costa Rican in this panel. We are overrepresented. Yeah. So really thank you. As one of the fastest growing and most populous regions in the world, Asia Pacific has experienced significant economic transformation driven by structural change, capital accumulation, and increasing regional integration. The region is characterized by diverse economies, ranging from highly industrialized nations to emerging markets, and we have here also in the panel represented the small island developing states. And this makes the region a very significant contributor to global energy demand, but also a leader in the energy transition. But also, as we said before, and you said also, Armida, as a region that is highly impacted by climate change. But Asia Pacific is also then a region where countries experience more natural disasters than any other region in the world. And I have some numbers that I asked my team to check twice because I didn't believe them. And I will share them with you. But between 2014 and 2017, only 3 years, countries were impacted in the Asia Pacific by 55 earthquakes, 217 storms and cyclones, 236 cases of severe flooding, and also affected, all these events affected 650 million people and tragically claimed the life of 33,000. So this really tells us all the high human cost of what we are living and the damage that we have done to the environment. So climate vulnerability is further intensified by rapid urbanization. This is something that I know that the Regional Commission has talked about a lot, and inadequate urban planning, which leave densely populated areas, especially near coast and large rivers, increasingly exposed to the effects of climate change. So the question before us is how to secure financing for a just and sustainable energy transition for a region that has advanced economically with strong contributions to global growth. This shift is essential. But what would such a transition mean for the more vulnerable areas with limited to minimal infrastructure, both within the Asia Pacific and beyond? How can we ensure that financing reaches the places most in need, enabling them to build resilience, protect their communities, and grow? And we know that it's not the lack of finance at the global level. is that the financing and the foreign direct investment and the investment is not going to the right places. And so that is really the question. And I like very much how Armida said, that we need blended finance, we need green bonds, we need PPP, we need a little bit of everything. But a little bit of everything has to make the scale that is necessary for what we have to do together. And the energy transition requires determination. It requires resources, institutions, norms, but resources. The new UNCTAD estimate prepared for the discussions on the NCQG negotiations indicate that developing countries will face a 1.1 trillion climate finance gap annually by 2025, getting to 1.8 trillion by 2030. It is in the range of many of the estimates that we have seen. So business as usual will have to change if we want to get to the level that we need. We have insisted that the reforms in the international financial architecture are necessary, that you need the multilateral development banks really to scale up, to crowd in investment, to be able to give better conditions of affordable interest rates and long term to be able for us to make it happen at the national level. And we have seen movement in the international organizations. We have seen here the multilateral development banks coming together with a more ambitious target that we welcome, but we need more. The other thing is sharing technology. And it will require embracing innovative financial instruments also for transfer of technology. We say that trade and investment regimes have to be more flexible for this to happen. So to sustainable finance markets, you know that the sustainable finance markets grew to over $7 trillion in 2023. $7 trillion. But and this opens a promising path to be traveled, but if we manage to fight back, we have to fight back serious greenwashing concerns. I don't know if you know, Excellencies, that in 2023, according to our numbers, the sustainable funds received 60% less of funds than the years before. 60% less. And that's because investors lost trust in the sustainable funds. So we need to gain back the trust. So let me just close saying that just one last thing, that is that over our estimations show that the new goal should have at least 3 T's. Trust, transformation, and trillions. So we need ambition, we need transformation, and we need trust. And I leave it at that, as this is something for the parties to negotiate. So thank you again to UNCTAD, to ESCAP, and I hope that our work together will continue. And you know that UNCTAD 16, that is our ministerial, will be in the Asia region. We still don't know where, but we will be there somewhere. So I hope that we will take the opportunity in UNCTAD 16 to really advance in this agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Grispan, for your excellent remarks. And now I would like to invite the excellencies that are here with us. Honorable Biman Prasad, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of the Republic of Fiji. I would like first to have your remarks on this important topic of energy transition finance and the challenges that Fiji has in this area.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here, Excellencies. Thank you, Under Secretary General, Executive Secretary. We have interacted before, and it's always a pleasure to be part of ESCAP activities. I know that the Under-Secretary General UNCTAD talked about Asia Pacific, but sometimes the Pacific gets drowned in the discussion within the Asia Pacific region, so I will try and confine my remarks to small island developing states and Fiji in particular. As you quite rightly pointed out, and I'm glad that you provided those statistics, small island development states everywhere, but more so in the Pacific, we face a unique set of challenges in addressing climate change, and Fiji is no exception. Our vulnerability to extreme weather events, as you again pointed out, sea level rise, other climate impact places immense strain on our economy, our infrastructure and our people. And in fact, when we talk about loss and damage, that's a historical damage, a historical deficit, which is huge, and many of these small island developing states do not have the physical space, and that is why the discussion, the agreement on the new collective codified finance goal is going to be critical. And we are saying that we can't leave Baku without having a meaningful, as you pointed out, 3 T's. For us, the trillions would be the most important, T out of the 3. But we know that with the right strategies, partnerships, and financial mechanisms, we can drive the energy transition and build a more resilient, sustainable future. Due to our circumstances and challenges we face with accessing finance, Fiji has embraced some homegrown financial solutions and innovations in an effort to diversify our access to finance. For example, in 2017, we introduced the Environment and Climate Adaptation Levy, what we call ECAL, to help support our climate objectives. The levy was actually a consortium of taxes on prescribed services, items, and income. It helped somewhat to fund critical work across Fiji to protect our natural environment, reduce the carbon footprint, and provide adaptation mechanisms for our economy, communities, and support for the infrastructure, which was worsening every day, with respect to climate change. Although we are reviewing, post-COVID, we had to review these taxes, and as you know, environmental levies and taxes do not go down very well with the private sector, with the businesses sometimes. But it did provide us with a new source of finance that complemented the existing finance pipelines. We used the ECAL levy or tax to particularly fund relocation of communities. Relocation of communities is not easy. It conjures different kinds of images. It creates an environment where communities can lose their dignity and respect, and nobody wants to relocate. But unless that is mandatory, there is no option. Relocation is something that we have to do. And so we're trying to build these innovations to see how we can fund the climate relocation of communities trust fund. We were, as you mentioned, the first seats to issue a sovereign green bond, mobilizing finance for climate action through capital markets. And more recently, we have issued a blue bond through a domestic issuance, which was quickly oversubscribed. In fact, it was oversubscribed about 3 times, than what we expected. So to address the increasing vulnerability of smallholder farmers to climate impacts, we have also established a low-cost parametric insurance product, which has recently made payouts to farmers and communities following a heavy rainfall event. And this is designed to provide immediate support to these vulnerable communities. But despite these efforts, however, our annual climate finance needs are immense. For example, we need close to 1 to 2 billion USD annually to keep pace with the challenges we face and facilitate the transition we need to withstand the projected impacts of climate change into the future. And this is far beyond our capacity and far beyond the capacity of many small island states which are grappling with high debt levels already. The recent figures from the Asian Development Bank indicate that without action, climate-related losses could reach 4% of our GDP by 2100. And we need to invest about 2.5% of GDP each year to prepare for the worst impacts. And this level of finance need means we have to think creatively, not just domestically, we have to think creatively internationally, and that is why this discussion on the NCQG, ESCAP, and the Loss and Damage Fund, and how we can quickly translate those pledges into real funding, and the accessibility to that funding by small island states. So we need to also scale up public-private partnerships to bring in external investors, and you talked about how we can leverage global capital markets. Our green bond and blue bond experience shows that investors are interested in these projects. As we said, our blue bond was oversubscribed by about 3 times. So expanding these efforts, we aim to encourage foreign direct investment in renewable energy, climate resilient infrastructure through new incentives, and corresponding legislative reform as well. So initiatives such as blended finance, where public funds are used to reduce risks and attract private investors, can help, but it is critical to understand and clarify that without a robust grant-based commitment to support LDCs and small island development states through the NCQG, these efforts will not bridge the gap. And you quite rightly, Under-Secretary General, talked about the huge financing gap that exists. So in closing, what I want to say, what I want to emphasize, that our challenges are significant, but they have not stopped us as a small island countries to also innovate, because we want to be part of the solution. We want to, as we do in terms of contributing towards addressing mitigation issues. But our innovation needs to be adequately supported through commitments that support programmatic and transformational investments that help us scale up our response to climate change quickly and effectively. If we continue by project by project, our efforts could remain fragmented and piecemeal. And Fiji and the entire Pacific region stands ready to lead by example in the fight against climate change. Our small economies and populations can offer the opportunity to trial new innovations, provide proof of concept, and demonstrate models that can be scaled in larger economies. But we need meaningful, sustained support from the global community to deliver the context-specific transition we require. So the NCQG we set here in Baku to signal solidarity, deliver scale, and reform access to ensure transition and transformation in the interest of all. That's going to be the key. And as I said, we cannot go away from Baku without having a meaningful and a quantum-based agreement on the NCQG and scaling up the Loss and Damage Fund, the pledges to become real, so that some of these countries more vulnerable small island developing countries can have access to financing, and time has already run out for us. The huge infrastructure deficit that we have to deal with on top of those that are going to come in the future is going to be very, very onerous. So once again, I want to commend ESCAP for organizing this. I think this is a very important, useful session, and I look forward to hearing from my other esteemed colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your very motivational remarks as well. And I would like to invite Your Excellency Tariq Ibrahim, Minister of Climate Change, Environment and Energy, Republic of Maldives. As you could see, we are starting with Pacific and small island states to give that prominence to this event. Thank you. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Maldives is a country that is heavily dependent on the fossil fuel imports, which accounts for about our 13% of our GDP last year. The reliance makes the country vulnerable to global prices fluctuation. Situation worsens by rising energy demand. So that's what we face every day. Right now, we only have 6% of our power generation is from renewable energy, mostly from solar energy. The rest is generated from diesel. Using diesel as a major source of energy generation is very costly, as I just now mentioned, both to the government and also to the consumers. The government spends around $195 million to subsidize our electricity for the consumers last year, to bring down the electricity costs to domestic customers. And transition to renewable energy sources as solar will bring down the cost of energy production, which will economically benefit both the government and the end user. I can actually give you a price for the diesel generation. When we use diesel to generate electricity, it costs about 29 cents per kilowatt hour to generate electricity. Whereas if we use the renewable sources, it has now gone down to 9 cents per kilowatt hour. But the thing is, we need investors, we need proper financing, we need, as we just mentioned, the blended finance to bring. We need the proper mechanisms so that we can actually start utilizing renewable energy sources in the Maldives. Because of that, last year our President Dr. Mohamed Moise has pledged a very ambitious target to reach, to have 33% of our electricity to be generated from renewable energy by end of 2028. So this is a very impressive and very target, but and also very. But we need to work on this very fast, and we need to work with all the our partners. So currently, the Maldives renewable energy target is capacity is about 68.5 or close to 69 megawatts of solar PV is installed at the moment, and we plan. There is a planned investment to grow up to 160 megawatts by 2028. However, this is not what we require to reach the 33%. We need additional 330 megawatts of solar PV to be installed in the country if we wanted to achieve 33% of our electricity to generate from renewable energy. But here again, the main issue is, where do we get the funds? How much is the funds that is required to do this? Our estimate is about 1.3 billion US dollars is required to finance this and to meet this target. So we are working with all our partners and also all the incredible initiatives and mechanisms on how we can get it done. But we feel that we can get it done if we, as you just now said, NCQG, if we can actually reach an NCQG that is not billions but it's trillions, if we can get for the small island states. So I think that's the way forward. Transition to renewable energy enhances, as I said, economic diversification, create green jobs, and promote gender and social inclusion. Our effort to showcase with the right incentives and a favorable investment environment, the private sector can help bridge the investment gap and drive our energy transition. We know that one of the key is the private sector, that we have to engage the private sector. The government is actively promoting private investment in large-scale solar and marine energy projects, focusing on the stability and advanced energy for seamless integration. We have started on, we are working with a private party on PPA as PPA for one of Maldives' largest floating solar projects, about 100 megawatts. We have given the initial go-ahead and we are working with them on the detailed design. But it is the first of its kind, I think, in the region as well, on the outer seas, on the open seas. So if we can pull through this, I think we will have something to go ahead. So international support is needed, as I said, to vulnerable communities such as Maldives, small island development, to remove the technological barrier, address the capacity gap, and promote joint efforts to unlock the potential investment opportunities and facilitate sustainable financing towards a greener future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your remarks. And I would like to invite Her Excellency. I'm Romina Husis Alang. She is the coordinator to the Prime Minister on Climate Change, member of the Parliament of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Of course, now we are moving away from the Pacific or the seas, and now we go to a very important country that has also been suffering from climate change. And perhaps we can also have some of your views related to the great work that you're doing on coordination and interministerial consideration as we are talking about business as usual. Up to you. Up to you. You can stay there if you want.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I just raise a little question. There are just so much gender imbalance. I'm the only one woman. I think more ladies need to be here. But anyways, just on a lighter note.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There are. Yeah. Oh, well, that's great.
There was not enough seats.
Great. More seats, okay. More seats, but I'm just on the lighter note. I'm really glad to see more women in it. Thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to be the part of it. When it comes to Pakistan, as we all know that, yes, Pakistan is, in the vulnerable countries, is the top 5 among the top 5 countries. It's so good to see Maldives here. My other countries, friends are here. And of course, I believe when I talk about the climate change issues and challenges, it's more of the coordination which is not needed only in the ministries. I think regionally as well, it's very important to be strong, to stand for each other, because the regional solution is the basic solution for the climate challenges. Because if we are not going to stand for each other, I don't think so somebody else is going to come for us. We need to sort out these challenges. When it comes to the renewable energy, and we are talking about, so Pakistan, when it comes, I just wanted to ensure that what we are doing and how we are dealing with it. So Pakistan aims to reach almost 60% share of ARE of 2030, but achieving this is challenging. Beyond investing in ARE projects, sustainable funds and needed to expand and reinforce the transmission of distribution grid. So Pakistan lacks the physical capacity to do this alone. So strong international financial support, particularly green and consensus financing. So it's a bit crucial, but of course we are trying our level best. Pakistan is very much on advancing you can say, energy efficiency program to lessen the demand for new generation projects. So when it comes to the energy transition to renewable energy, when it comes to is the silver, of course we know, we call it like a silver bullet to address the double, edge swords of energy. Crisis and growing debt concerns, because that is also a greatest challenge. So the major reliance on imported fuel and energy import bills shrinks the overall physical space, so and creates a situation compromised energy side. And when it comes to as my dear he asked about the ministerial thing, so when I get into the ministry, and the most important thing which I felt was lacking behind, that was the coordination among the ministries. It's very much important because when we talk about the climate change, of course we need to think about we have to see other challenges as well. We have to go through with the policies, we have to go through and see what's lacking behind, what's the need and how we can manage. So in that way, we tried the climate ministry. As you have seen that my title is that I'm the coordinator to the Prime Minister on climate change and environmental coordination. So what we are doing, because after the 18th Amendment in Pakistan, the provinces are very much independent. So we try not to do the ministerial coordination. In fact, we are very much connected and doing the coordination among the provinces. And that what we are trying, that, we engage the Energy Ministry, Ministry of, Water and Resources, and Ministry of Power, Ministry of Finance as well, Ministry of Planning. So all the ministries which are very much relevant and related to it. So they all sit together and to come up with the plans that how we can work. And that goes under the Prime Minister. As in Pakistan, the Prime Minister of Mia Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif, he is the Minister of the Climate Change. So you can imagine that how much it is important for us. And of course, as being when it comes to the vulnerability as well, I don't want to say that as everybody know that we are the vulnerable country, but I think it's moreover important that that how Pakistan as being vulnerable, but we are going towards as a resilience nation. But again, I emphasize that as I'm looking in my front and on my right and left, that people from across the globe are sitting here. So I always believe that it's not something, when we are talking about the solution, we need to sit together. We need to guide each other, because what's happening in Pakistan or in other countries, it's not going to stay over there. It can't, because climate change issues don't see the boundaries. In 2022, we have seen the world's worst floods, so and the crisis as well, and then so many challenges as being a developing country. So I think it's moreover important, as I've mentioned, in which in the ministerial level as well, how we work, I've mentioned earlier as well. So in that, we try to, climate change, try to be more into the coordination and to see, because we have to go through with the international treaties and look after those challenges as well. So it's more over the coordination. In the beginning, it was not that easy, but now, alhamdulillah, the things are going on the track, and we are, working on that side, and how we put that energy into the net metering and grid, how we can work on that. So in this way we are working. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency, for your specific experience on coordinating the issues that are extremely important for the energy transition financing. And that's precisely the objective of this panel. I would like to invite now, we have only 20 minutes according to so we will have to advance a little bit. I would like to invite His Excellency Leong Seong Jeong. He's the Deputy Managing Director of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, to deliver your remarks. Would you like to? Okay. Maybe here.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. During these meetings, we announced a blended finance initiative. In fact, it was announced last year. It's called the Financing Asia's Transition Partnership, or FAST-P. Blended finance was mentioned a few times. So let me briefly set the context and explain what FAST-P is all about. First, the IEA estimates that Asia's energy demand will increase by more than 60% by 2040, with Asia accounting for about half the world's carbon emissions. We need to transform our fossil-based energy system into a low-carbon one to power Asia's long-term sustainable growth. However, many climate projects in the region are not fully bankable, and public sector funds alone will not be sufficient to finance energy and green transition in Asia. So we need a concerted movement to crowd in both concessional as well as commercial capital if we are to succeed in advancing Asia's energy transition. So recognizing this, Singapore announced our FAST-P program last year. Now, FAST-P is a blended finance initiative which aims to mobilize US dollars 5 billion to de-risk and finance green and transition projects in Asia. The Singapore government announced this week that it will pledge up to 500 million US dollars as concessional capital to match dollar for dollar concessional capital raised from other partners. So this combined pool of concessional as well as commercial capital, this combined pool of concessional capital will be used to crowd in commercial capital and other sources of finance to support Asia's green transition. So what prompted us to do this? Actually, it's not common for a central bank to come out to set up a blended finance facility. Typically, this is in the realm of multilateral development banks. But we thought it was important for a central bank as overseer of the financial system, and we asked ourselves, how can Singapore's financial center support the region's financial transition, right? So it's not about generating financing solutions to support Singapore's needs, but how can our financial center play a role to catalyzing financing flows to support Asia's transition. Second, when we look across the landscape, right, we see many actors, right? MDBs, philanthropies, foundations, fund managers, banks, many actors, but everyone doing their own thing, right? And when everyone does their own thing, things remain subscale, right? So when we launch the FAST-P initiative, it's not about creating another fund just to add to the mix, right? It is aimed at achieving a few specific objectives. Let me highlight 4. The first is to create a platform to crowd in concessional capital and then crowd in commercial capital at scale. The key word here is platform, right? So as mentioned earlier, it's not project by project, transaction by transaction, but creating a platform, right, to crowd in both concessional as well as commercial capital. So our view is that it's far more efficient to think about blended finance at the platform level, aggregate and blend concessional and commercial capital with the Singapore government chipping in $500 million, and then deploy this in a streamlined way to regional projects. Second, focus on key areas where we see bottlenecks and choke points, right? Hence, we send up 3 programs under FAST-P. First, energy transition and early retirement of coal. Second, unlocking marginally bankable projects and making them bankable. Third, supporting decarbonization of hard-to-abate sectors, right? So doesn't necessarily have to be these 3. We started with these 3, and I think we are very happy that across the key stakeholders, this resonates, and we are actually getting very good partnerships, right, across the 3 funds in this endeavor. The third motivation is to use this excuse to draw the ecosystem tighter together, right? So we can achieve impact at scale. Sounds easy, but actually not so. Each stakeholder is bound by its own mandates, right? Its own internal processes and guidelines for how to deploy capital. So to set up each of these investment partnerships, it requires intensive conversations and discussions on how to structure this in a way that all parties can agree with. But once you get that done, right, people get more used to doing things together. More such partnerships can happen over time in a spontaneous and organic way. So, as I said, this is an excuse to draw the ecosystem tighter together, and when they get used to working with each other, right, then actually far more of these partnerships can happen more spontaneously. Finally, the beauty of getting this started, right, is that once you get more projects across the bankability line, you may actually reduce the need for concessional capital further down the road. This can happen once you get past the initial stage of development, when emerging technologies have acquired commercial scale and become more viable, and investors become more familiar with projects in the region. So in conclusion, FASTP is not just about creating a fund, it is an exercise to build muscles, right? To build muscles, to exercise convening power, to mobilize different stakeholders with their own convening powers, where you can then act in concert to make a meaningful impact in the region, to build muscles to develop partnerships and alliances, and then lastly, to encourage each stakeholder to lean forward, be prepared to step outside of your mandates, and collectively optimize for the whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for presenting FASTP, Financing Asia's Transition Partnership, which look forward to work together on this. Perhaps we can also add Pacific. In this particular situation, we would like to invite the Undersecretary of Energy of the Philippines in order to include your remarks. You can ask from there, please.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? So to our colleagues, Your Excellencies, beautiful ladies, I'm here representing Undersecretary, a lady, Chiseka, and also my secretary, the head of delegation, Secretary Laisaga, a lady. So being very detailed, let me go to the point. As far as the Philippines transition plan is concerned, we need 500 to 600 billion US dollars. And how we approach the same, we tend to mobilize everyone towards a target, or where the President mentioned that our renewable energy must be at least 35% of the generation mix by 2030 and 50% by 2040. How will we do it? Everyone should contribute. And it all begins with energy efficiency, plus renewable energy, plus other energy technologies. Batteries was mentioned. Then we also have ICT and resiliency. So this is the formula that the Philippines is following. So energy efficiency, in the language of climate change here in UNFCCC, is basically an adaptation and mitigation strategy. So what we emphasize here is that adaptation should be considered and recognized before we go to mitigation, because adaptation efforts by ordinary citizens can have a mitigation outcome once they're elevated further, considering that we have new technologies being developed. Technologies cannot be stopped. And that's why the momentum for financing all these is quite easy if we just see the harmonization and the logic behind all the articles of the Paris Agreement. 6.2, 6.4, and 6.8 are tied up by 6.1, which recognizes both adaptation and mitigation. And here, ordinary people can contribute. In the Philippines, we have consumers that are empowered not only to exercise energy efficiency by choosing the right appliances, and then elevating it further with renewable energy by putting up solar systems on their homes. We also have the distribution utilities that have those targets that they should meet as mandatory. And we also have the green energy auctions for the big players. And we have the directly connected customers. And we opened up investments in renewable energy to 100% participation by foreigners. So that is the momentum that the Philippines is looking into. The Philippine banks are quite liquid. and yet they don't understand the potential of investing in renewables because the business as usual forces financial institutions to look for a power supply agreement, also known as a contract. That's why we have the green energy auctions. But we have other strategies where renewables in the wholesale electricity spot market are considered like senior citizens, pregnant women, or persons with disabilities. What do I mean? They're first to be dispatched. So if everything goes well, a renewable energy developer produces X quantity, whereas a fossil fuel based power plant produces Y quantity. Even if the Y quantity is quite cheaper, X quantity is dispatched first. So stop looking at PSAs and stop looking at big players alone. So that is what we are seeing, and the fundamental laws should be in place. It's not only a target in these programs, the laws should be in place. In the Philippines, we had the Oil Deregulation Act, then followed by Power Restructuring. Then we had the Biofuels Renewable Energy Act, the Energy Efficiency Law, and the Electric Vehicles Industry Development Act, and the Microgrid Systems Act. So these are strategies, and we're looking forward to having the transition credits, because it's not only the responsibility of big players, it's not only the responsibility of our governments, and please make sure that the ordinary citizens have that capability to contribute. And when they're quantified, they can be traded under 6.4 if we only see that vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for this powerful message related to centers. And of course, I would like to invite our last speaker. We have 5 minutes, so I kindly request, please, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, it's great to be the last one in this panel because we are the only financial institution represented here. The Green Climate Fund, as you know, is an operating entity of the Paris Agreement and also of COP. So we are driven by the needs of our countries. And the role that we have is to be a catalyzer of crowding in public and private capital. So while we're not yet at the trillions as Madam Greenspan is getting that ambition that I hope negotiators listen and listen well, we are here with billions to help move to those trillions. And we have a specific mandate to have 50% of our investments in mitigation and adaptation. And we also have a mandate to work with the most vulnerable. 50% of our adaptation allocation must go to African states, small island development states, and least developed countries. So we are here to support the most vulnerable. And we've been working with the countries that preceded me in many different ways. But I believe we also, as Madam Greenspan said, we need to move beyond business as usual. We need to move beyond one size fits all into fit for purpose. And we've already been proving that we can do that to crowd in private sector. In Pakistan, we just helped launch the first climate fund that the country has, and we're trying to crowd in a lot more private capital. In Barbados, we recently worked in a transaction with the IFC on green hydrogen to use that important source to keep a 24 cycle of energy access. We are also working with other partners in the impact investing world to help the energy access of the most need in Africa. But it all really boils to, as it was said by the representative of Singapore, of collaboration. It is how do we bring all the different pools of capital? How do we understand mission and return? And how do we put them in the right order? We require more discipline. But we also require to look for opportunities that would give country more fiscal space in order to use that fiscal space in moving especially adaptation finance further. We are here to serve all countries as a country-driven fund. And I'm very honored to be part of this conversation, and I hope you have a few more minutes to have the closing remarks of the director of UNEP, who is our partner in the Green Climate Fund as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your very precise intervention. I would like to invite Undersecretary General of the United Nations and Executive Director of the UN Environment Program, Mrs. Inger Andersen, to close this session. You have the floor.
And what a session it has been. It has been quite remarkable, because what you have been discussing here is how to finance this transition that we know we have to do. I've listened intently, and I had spies here who listened when I was not. So let me just say this. Bloomberg just less than a month ago issued a report that updates the figures that we have from Amida's wonderful report, saying that we are going to need for this region $2.3 billion between 2024 and 2030, a year for the Asia-Pacific region. So that ups the number somewhat, but that's important. It is also in this region that many of solutions lie. Recall that 60% of carbon emissions globally are from this region, but also recall that this is a region where we are seeing the fastest investments in renewable. China invests around 200 gigawatts a year. China has a total installed capacity of 1,300 gigawatts that outsizes anyone else in this field. And we have massive hydro, of course, solar and wind yet to go. When we look at that, then, we see also that this region is going to be very hard hit by climate impacts. And there we are projecting GDP losses up to 21% by 2050 if we do not take action. So the opportunities are very real for this region. And when we look at the UNEP emissions gap report that we issued just a couple of days ago in Cali for the Biodiversity COP, we project a 3.1 degree by 2100 if we continue with the current policies. If we take action, as we have promised in our NDCs 2.0, that leads us to a span between 2.6 to 2.8 degrees, depending on whether we take just the unconditional, or we also take the conditional NDCs. That, ladies and gentlemen, is undoable. Therefore, the NDCs 3.0, we have to see a massive stretch. We need to see a reduction in emissions between now and 2030 of 47%, between now and 2035 of 53%. That is big. Recall that we emit 53.7 gigatons a year. 57.3 gigatons a year. Right now, if we want to hit 1.5 degrees, we have 200 gigatons left. After that, the bathtub flows over. We have filled the atmosphere with CO2, and we will bypass 1.5. That is a given. It is physics. If we want to hit 2 degrees, and we really don't, trust me, that means that we have 900 gigatons left. Recall that I said that we emit 57 gigatons a year. Do the math. It is now that we need to see this action, and that is why the NDCs 3.0 matter. That is why it is so critical. And we heard just now on the Article 6, having landed the Article 6. Yes, do we think it's perfect? No, probably not. Do we think it could? That's okay. It has taken us 29 years. 29 years to get there. Let's celebrate this victory and give thanks to the ministers who landed it. This is important. Let's celebrate where we have those victories, because they are hard fought for. At this time, when we look at this region, we see that this region is a mover. I've mentioned China. Let me also mention India. We heard from Pakistan just before. They are rapidly expanding in renewables. Let me mention South Korea's Green New Deal. Let me mention what's happening in Vietnam and the Philippines, and all that we heard here. But let me also speak to the small island developing states. And my friend, Minister Tariq Ibrahim, sitting there, he is a tireless defender of the SIDS. And so the fact that the small island states are being hit means that everyone else has to make that lift, make that promise, make sure that we get the NDCs as ambitious as we possibly can. Recall that the G20 taking out Africa are responsible for 77% of all emissions, 77% amongst just 20 countries. And of course, those that have the longest historical trail, as our Secretary General says, have to do the highest lift. This is why he is calling for those countries to close in and have their net zero by 2040 to give rooms for those that have a little harder time to get there. But all of us have to make a substantial tightening of the belt in terms of our CO2 emissions. The NDC 3.0 are due in February of this year. This gives you 3 months to finish them. We will be scrutinizing them, and we will be calling you out if you're not living up to it. Meanwhile, seeing Asia and Pacific so strongly here, talking about exactly what needs to happen in terms of the financial transition, I stand in awe of that. It is so important. I salute you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the meeting has been closed. Now we invite the participants for a group photo. And with that, we have to finish this. Thank you very much to everybody.